Hi everybody, this is golf instructor Steve Bishop from the Gateway to Better Golf. You can find us at golfswing.throughhere.net. That's golfswing.throuhere.net. And today I'm going to be taking a look at Fufu's golf swing as a courtesy to Fufu, who's been a longtime member of Free Golf Info. I also wanted to do this as a demonstration of what you could expect if you were to sign up for our student section for just the low cost of $29.99 a month. And basically, what we've got here with Fufu is a pretty good setup here. I really like the way that his weight is set up. It might be a little bit on his heels if I just kind of draw a couple lines here indicating where his frontal boundary of his balance is and where his hind boundary is. You'll see that he's a little bit more on his toes than he is on his heels. And that's not too bad. I'd actually rather have someone a little bit more on their toes than their heels. Generally allows for a little bit more of an inside path. Uh, but I'm okay with a little bit on the heels too, just so long as it's mostly over the arches, okay? A little bit is okay, but we definitely don't want dramatic as far as the balance goes from heel to toe. And Fufu, I think, is in pretty good shape here. I think he's pretty well balanced. The next thing that I would like to take a look at, and really, unfortunately, because we only have a down the line view, we're going to have to take it up to the top in order to discover this. If we look at the top of his golf swing, you'll notice that the club face is aimed way up here at the sky. Okay? But the back of his left hand is aimed just a little bit above his head. So there's a difference. There's quite a difference here between where his club face is and where the back of his left hand is. And that indicates that he's got a very strong grip. Now, with a strong grip, that means that the club face is more likely to be closed at impact, and a closed club face means that the ball will generally start to the left. Now, over time, what's happened is Fufu has developed a way to counteract this a little bit, and that is, if you'll notice, he is aimed out this way. Okay, but to give us an idea of exactly where his target is, and unfortunately he can't tell us where his target is, I actually believe his target's going to be about here. And the way we can determine that is when he actually hits the golf ball, about where does it start? And you'll notice from tee to ball here, you'll notice that it's about right there. And if you follow that path all the way, that means that the ball's going to land somewhere out in here, okay, or at least is starting to go out somewhere in here. And the spin on the golf ball may determine it, it may go all the way out over here to the left, it may curve and go back out here to the right. I believe he actually hits quite a bit of a draw, quite a bit of a hook here. And we'll get into exactly why he does that in just a moment. But for the most part, you'll see that his ball path is at great odds with the setup of where his feet are. Okay, so he sets up with quite a closed stance. But with a closed stance, that allows for the closed club face to actually start the ball a little bit more at his target because he's rotating his whole body to the right so that when he strikes it a little bit to the left, he counteracts the direction that the ball is going to be taking off due to the club face being so far closed. The problem with this setup and doing it this particular way is that what you do is you set it up for one of two things to happen. If you make a properly planed golf swing, that is one that basically goes back on the same plane and follows on an inside path, what's going to happen is that you're going to hook the devil out of it, okay? Because right now, if you look, his path is actually pretty doggone good and coming from pretty flat inside path relative to our view of where the ball is in the target. So the club is coming in at a pretty level, low, what they often call a flat path down. Sometimes they call it the elbow plane. Well, he's almost all the way down to the elbow plane here, and partially that's because of this this setup that goes out here to the right. But the really important thing to understand is that he's going to be approaching the golf ball a little bit from the inside because of this flat path. Okay, now with a flat path and a closed club face, what you end up having is a ball that starts out relatively good at the target, but ultimately has a hook on it. Okay, because his path is going out this way, but the ball is starting out that way. And when the path is this way, but the club face is that way, you end up having a hook. Okay? Now, with that hook, what we're going to have is a ball that starts right at the target and hooks back. So one of the things that will often happen as a result, and Fufu doesn't do it on this swing, but sometimes somebody who sets up so far close to the target and with such a strong grip is that they will develop an over-the-top move, because that over-the-top move they can start to get away with. But ultimately, I think Fufu needs to make some adjustments here. The first one would be, I'd say he needs to weaken his grip considerably. This setup, I mean, you can tell here the club face is just way too shut relative to the back of his left hand. So we definitely need to find a way to neutralize his grip. Now, I recommend an intermediate step. I don't want to necessarily turn a person's hands. What I actually do instead is I want to actually see him open the club face at the setup. So I actually want the club face aimed out a little bit out to the right, but keep the same grip as far as relative to the golf ball. And what that's going to do is going to give us a good little in between where the club face appears open. The club face will be neutral related to his hands, but will look open compared to where he is, as related to the target. And what that allows him to do is realize how much more he needs to roll his forearms during the release, because right now he has to kind of block it in order to make the ball go straight. So we need to teach him a little bit. We kind of do two things at the same time by opening up that club face and making it point out to the right. The first thing that we do is we emphasize that, hey, this is what a neutral grip is like. The club face is relative to the hands is where we need it to be, is more, in line with the back of the left hand. And second thing it emphasizes is how much he's going to need to let those forearms roll in order and close the club face in order to square up the club face to hit the ball. So that's the first thing you're going to need to do, is just basically open the club face at the setup. And the second thing that he's going to need to do is really just work on putting a club down that's aimed a little bit more at his target and lining up his feet with that shaft. I would work on that constantly. So just doing those two things: open up the club face at the setup and lay a shaft down here between the golf ball and your feet to give you a good idea of what the alignment should be, and just line this club face basically right, or line the club shaft right at your target. All right, I hope this has been enjoyable. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me. Of course, my website again is golfswing.throughhere.net. That's golfswing.throuhere.net.